In America today, people don't have to think about the proportions that they are buying, and you can even buy things in bulk at most stores. But during the World War I era, the civilians' food choice was limited and the amount that they could buy, no matter how big their families were. The daily ration of a soldier in our army consists of about 4 1/4 pounds of food. 1 million soldiers would require at least
4,250,000
pounds of food a day.
At this rate, a year's supply of food for 1 million men would weigh
1,551,250,000
pounds, and we were planning to raise an army of 4 or 5 million men.
During the First World War, many men felt compelled to leave their farms and join the front line. With the farmers leaving their land, food production began to decrease, leaving the rest of America with little food. Also, European countries were in dire need of food and supplies, so the Food Administration's goal was to send nutrients to Europe in their most concentrated form, again, leaving Americans with even less food than before. Ray Wilbur, one of the Food Administration leaders, said, "Nations are like individuals and develop or lose character or morale in just the same way. The United States had to harden and could best do so by becoming stronger and more efficient. A nation lean, not because it is small, but because it is powerful. The nation's sacrifices would help win the war." This is why America felt that the food supplies should be rationed, and they were vitally important to winning the war because it had become a contest of endurance on and off the battlefield.
The Food Administration's motto is "Food will win the war." They relied mostly on voluntarism, and they say that it is because they never forced Americans to sacrifice, but inspired them to do so willingly. The Food Administration created the 50-50 rule, and this means that the consumers could purchase unlimited amounts of wheat flour as long as they bought an equal amount of some other grain at the same time. Otherwise, if they did not enforce this, then the government never would have taken part in the food conservation. Fats found in popular foods were needed to make glycerin, a key component in wartime explosives. The metal used to can food was more urgently needed for the war effort. Rubber was needed to make Jeep tire and tank tracks for vehicles that roll through hundreds of miles of terrain in Africa and Europe. For all these reasons, the American government found it necessary to limit the consumption of these and other critical items in order to prevent severe shortages.
The United States Food Administration sent a press release throughout the country announcing that families will be put on voluntarily war rations. 300 of New York City's most socially prominent women petitioned for explicit government instructions on what to eat. The Food Administration then printed out special ration cards. The women decided that they were going to start their families on the patriotic diet immediately. They rationed modest weekly quantities of red meat, butter, cooking fats, wheat flour, and sugar. But they could eat as much milk, vegetables, non-wheat cereals, fish, and poultry as they wanted. Individuals within and external to the administration clearly saw the food conservation campaign as an opportunity to champion the moral value of austerity. Congressionalist Wilbur said that failing to finish all the food on a plate was a fundamental sin.
Through the rations of food, the United States fought a total war during World War I. The Food Administration allowed citizens to become an active part of their government. With their help, each individual felt they had a significant part in helping win the war. Every citizen in the country had to make a voluntary sacrifice every time they bought food. They thought about how their decisions would affect the troops fighting the war, even their alliances that the U.S. was providing goods for. Every little bit of the rations helped provide the troops with what they needed.
On the head and make him wiser. We'll have a wonderful time.